One,
Are we
two,
ready?
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It looks like we're all here, Mr. Fedorcha.
Okay, then I would like to call the meeting to order. And this meeting is being recorded. The recording will be posted on the NLSD District Media YouTube channel. All votes this evening will be roll call votes. And a reminder to school board members to please state your name before you first and second a motion. Okay, moving on. May we just say the pledge to the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mr. Dissler? Mr. Dissler?
He did say he was on.
Mr. Green?
Mr. Green is here.
Ms. Heckman?
Second here.
Ms. Husak? Here. Mr. Keegan?
Here.
Mr. Kern? Ms. Culp?
Here.
Ms. Martineau?
Here.
Mr. Fedorcha?
Here.
Mr. Dissler?
Here.
There he is.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Okay, as always, public comments will be at any time we are in a discussion item of the agenda that is needed. Otherwise, all public comments will be held to the end of our meeting. May we have approval of the minutes of June 8th and June 22nd?
So moved, Bob Keegan.
Matt Green seconds.
Any questions, comments, or changes? All those in favor signify, roll call, please.
Mr. Dissler?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Heckman?
Yes.
Ms. Husak? Yes. Mr. Keegan?
Yes.
Mr. Kern? Ms. Culp?
Yes.
Ms. Martineau?
Yes.
Mr. Fedorcha?
Yes, present. I'm good.
Motion passed.
Okay. Thank you very much. I really want to just say I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight for this special meeting. It is an extremely important meeting for our district. And I do want to thank everyone who is either here or online, and not here personally, but online. Thank you for coming out. And now I will turn it over to our special reports, and I will turn it over to Mr. Link for our superintendent's report. Mr. Link.
Thank you, Mr. Fedorcha, and welcome, everyone. I'd like to start this evening by thanking a number of groups for their work and support on building the proposed health and safety plan. The Northern Lehigh Education Association and their officers for their ongoing communication, feedback, and help in brainstorming and problem solving. I ask for you to continue with this cooperation as we move forward. The Northern Lehigh Education Support Staff Association for their dedication and ongoing communication. The administrative team for their energy, encouragement, and problem-solving mindset. Those have responded to the initial round of surveys for parents and guardians and employees. Please know that additional surveys will be sent in the very near future. St. Luke's University Health Network for their guidance in developing our sports resocialization plan and the proposed district-wide health and safety plan. And of course, also the Northern Lehigh School Board for their guidance, input, and support. A lot of work has been accomplished since March 13th, and it's no secret that more work needs to be done in the days and weeks moving forward. As the guidance from the state and federal level often changes, and I'm sure will continue to change, we will do our best to adapt to the local environment for teaching and learning. That said, tonight we are asking for the Board of School Directors to approve the framework that the proposed plan offers and to grant me and the leadership team to adjust the ability to adjust as necessary moving forward based on future state and federal level guidance and our local needs. I know that the uncertainty is overwhelming at times for family, staff, support staff, and administration. However, we will continue to push forward with planning for multiple scenarios that may or may not materialize. I would now like to share a summary of the phases for the opening plan. And I will now share my screen. Mr. Hill, can you affirm if the screen is sharing appropriately?
Yes, it looks good.
All right, thank you, sir. So last Friday, we shared out the entire proposed plan. And, you know, it's obviously a 50-page document, and it's a living document. So what we would like to do this evening is share out the highlights from, you know, green, yellow, red, and then open the discussion for this part of the presentation. If we go back in the green phase, it would be for opening schools, the buildings, the physical buildings for all K-12 students, and we would be offering traditional in-person instruction, again, within the physical school buildings, and that would be 5 days a week. For the most part, we would stick very closely to the proposed start times and end times. However, you'll notice that we had to put in there that could change. Even if we start 5 days as close to a normal schedule as possible, there could be variations that come along that we may need to shift due to if we have to move more towards a hybrid model, due to transportation and busing. So I'm kind of putting everybody out there, making you aware that our goal is to keep it as close to normal as possible. But as the guidance in our local environment changes, we would need to potentially pivot and change with it. In the green plan, alternative academic options would be potential distance learning. So that could be full-time, short-term online learning option for health and safety reasons. An example of this could be if a student would need to quarantine for 14 days, or if a student would contract the virus. I hope that doesn't happen, but we have to plan for potentially the inevitable, that we would look to be able to keep them engaged in online learning if their health permits. All courses in this case would be taught by NLSD teachers using NLSD curriculum and materials. The association president, Mr. Weber, and I are planning to now more firmly plan what that would look like. Okay, we're considering some models, everything from live streaming, the classrooms, to potentially even pockets of teachers dedicated to this. We don't yet know what that's specifically going to be. Those conversations we're going to need to delve into much more deeply. Part of that is going to be the results of the surveys that will be going out in the very near future, so we can try to determine how many children will actually be in the classrooms to start the school year. In other words, we're going to be asking parents at this point in time, what is your intent for the first day of school? We know that may change. We're sensitive to that. But we're asking what may be your intent as we go into August 31st. Another option could be our Bulldog Academy, which is our existing cyber program. The difference here is that this could be full-time, more of a long-term online learning option. And by long-term, what we're talking about is a marking period, you know, a quarter, minimally a quarter at the elementary and middle school, a semester at the high school due to the block scheduling. This here, you'll notice, is a little bit different in that it is all courses taught by Pennsylvania certified teachers, not necessarily Northern Lehigh School District instructors. This is a program that we've been in a partnership with the Carbon Lehigh Intermediate Unit for a number of years now, and they, through their networks, provide the instructors. And then we're just kind of more monitoring and doing more of support to the students, but we are not the actual instructors. However, those grades do count for our students, and those students are absolutely still considered Northern Lehigh School District students. Health and safety measures, as kind of as gleaned from the larger full plan, is sign and symptoms monitoring. Home screening of symptoms and illness will be required. Families, we are going to ask that you screen your sons and daughters, your children, for symptoms as we begin to re-engage in schooling in the buildings. And then to communicate with us if you need to keep your son or daughter home for that particular day, or even for more of a long-term time period. And I'll share in a little bit some helpers we're going to send out that you can post around your house to help, one, remember to do the screening, and also, two, what to look for. Lunches, we're looking at lunches and alternate lunch locations may be used, large group settings. For example, at our high school, it's going to be, we're removing a lot of the equipment from the high school. So we have more space in there. We're going to open up some of the annex rooms right off the cafeteria in the high school so we can put additional tables in there. We're going to utilize outside space when weather permits. At the middle school, we're looking at the cafeteria, the annex, potentially even a library space over there. In the elementary classrooms, we're looking at serving the meals within the classrooms. Hallways, again, signage around the hallways, and some hallways and stairwells are going to be one way in direction. Transitions between classrooms will be limited or staggered. So in other words, we're trying to decrease the number of children in the hallway at a single time. Eliminate the secondary bell schedules and working with the teachers to allow them to release their classrooms to keep the density of students in the hallways down. And allow students to carry their materials to reduce time at lockers. The less time students are spent congregating at their lockers, the better. Buses, students will be seated no more than two to a seat, and face coverings will be required. There's been a lot of different information out there in the media for all school districts about what to do with buses. We do not have the capacity to go to a single student per seat. So at this point, we're going to have no more than 2 students per seat, and they're going to have to wear their masks. Visitors and volunteers, we're going to limit it to emergency and urgent situations and essential services. Every meeting that we can have in this type of setting, a virtual remote setting, is how we're going to do it. We appreciate your understanding and cooperation with that. And then again, the reinforcement of proper hygiene and routines. All staff will be trained in COVID-19 mitigation strategies. Signage will be visible for all students and how to help stop the spread of COVID-19. We're asking that all students bring their NLSD issued Chromebook or laptop in the issued carrying case. If you do not yet have a case, they are currently coming in. Face coverings. We are not going to mandate the type of face covering. We're going to ask that you follow the description that came out in the Northern Lehigh, or I'm sorry, rather in the Department of Health's guidelines. Those are linked into the plan. And a water bottle, a reusable water bottle for your students. Under the yellow plan, you'll see again, this would be all K-12 students, could be traditional, could be hybrid, or could be a full distance remote learning. This would be, some examples of why we would go to yellow would be if the state puts the county back in the yellow, or if we feel locally that we're at the point that we now need to do this. And it would be more of a hybrid of physical school buildings and online learning 5 days a week. Again, that could change if we felt we had to go to a 2 days in, a day out for extensive cleaning and sanitation, and then 2 days back in with groups in and groups out simultaneously. You see the start times and end times there and the building opening times. You'll notice that we're looking at having the buildings open so the students can not have to spend additional time on the bus, come right in and get to where they need to go. And it also will help us kind of control the flow of traffic a little bit more outside of the buildings and within the buildings. We're looking at, using multiple points of entrance and exit for these exchanges. So, again, you'll see some slight variations in the minutes that you may have been accustomed to in previous years. And again, ultimately, overall, that could change depending on the needs of the local environment as we move forward. Alternative academic options, again, would be the potential distance learning, as described previously, and also Bulldog Academy. Health and safety signs would be signs and symptoms, monitoring, the home screenings again, lunches again, very similar to what you have seen in the first series there. The green phase. Next one is what to bring to school. Again, your Chromebook or laptop in a carrying case, face covering, and a water bottle. The red phase would be, again, the most restrictive phase. And this would be if the governor orders the closing of schools, or if we have to locally at a school district level, through consultation with the Pennsylvania Department of Health, through consultation through our partners at St. Luke's University Health Network, if we had to decide to close the schools, we would have to go back to full distance remote learning, again, also with Bulldog Academy. Also being an option where potentially having the partnership students engage in Bulldog Academy where it's not our instructors, but still considered a Northern Lehigh School District student. Health and safety students would go online only, and again, all courses would be taught by PA certified teachers. And then the last page here is the list of contacts for the different areas of operations across the district and throughout the building, throughout the school buildings. And then at the bottom here, you will see there's a QR code. We still need to get some verbiage down here on the QR code. That QR code, if you use any smart device that has a QR reader, will take you directly to the full Northern Lehigh School District Health and Safety Plan. Additionally, that plan, once approved, would also be posted on the website where it can be accessed there. It is not our intent to mail home the 50-page document to everyone. It would be our intent to mail home the summary sheets and whatever their final form may look like to the families. I had mentioned some other smaller reminders and literatures that would be sent home to the parents and guardians. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second so I can bring those documents up and then show them to the viewers. So bear with me 1 second. Okay, so here, this is more of a, let me share my screen again. This would be more of a kind of a bookmark that would be sent home to families that would say, kind of welcome back. We're working hard to ensure a safe and healthy educational environment. Here are some things that we're looking to do. Increase sanitation, instructional models to meet your needs, social distancing, frequent and effective hand washing, and employee training. Also, some things that we would ask our family. Oh, I'm sorry. I guess it's not sharing.
No,
Eric, is that now sharing?
Yeah, now it is.
Okay, let me go back to that. My apologies. Again, we are working hard to ensure a safe and healthy educational environment. And again, this would be like almost like a bookmark that would go home about what we're looking to do on a very general level here about the increased sanitation, instructional models to meet needs. We're going to try to make as many models that we can available.
I'm sorry, nothing is coming up. It's a blank. It's your screen, but it's blank.
All right, my apologies. Let me try one more time. Mr. Hill, are you able to see that?
Yeah, it came up, now it disappeared again. There it is. Yeah, when you adjusted your screen size, it came up and then it disappeared again.
Is it still blank, sir?
Yes, it is right now.
Okay, I'm going to try one more time.
It is on right now.
Okay, thank you. So again, to kind of welcome back what we're doing, kind of talked you through this a little bit already, the increased sanitation, instructional models to meet your needs, social distancing, promoting frequent and effective hand washing, and employee training. What we're asking for families to do at home is to follow the health and safety guidelines, take your child's temperature daily, and then if your child is sick or exhibits symptoms, please stay home and communicate with the school nurse about the illness or exposure. We're also asking that if you can, transport your child to and from school if you are able. Even if it's just one way, every little bit will help us. Now I'm going to see if I can open up the other document, which talks more specifically about screening at home. So let me stop presenting here for a second. That document is not opening. Let me see if I can pull it up one other way. I apologize for the delay. Okay, Mr. Hill, I'm going to try this again. Can you let me know if it is showing on the screen? This is a quick reference card.
Yes, it is on the screen right now.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hill. Again, my apologies for the technical difficulties there. Every family will also receive this quick reference card. And here, kind of some recommendations. Practice and reinforce good prevention habits with your family. You can see how they're listed there. This is the stuff that has been promoted since really the pandemic started to spread here in Pennsylvania and locally. Keep your child at home if sick with any illness. If your child is sick, keep them at home and contact your healthcare provider. Talk with teachers about classroom assignments and activities that they can do from home, and we will also proactively communicate. We also understand that if your child is too sick to participate, we're sensitive to that. Be prepared if your child needs to stay home from school. Talk with your employer about sick leave or telework options in case you need to stay home with your child. I know that's not an easy conversation to have with employers. I understand that. We're asking that we start kind of thinking about it, though. Consider planning for alternative childcare arrangements. Student screening procedures. We're asking that daily, prior to sending your child to school or placing him or her on the school bus, that you complete the following. And you kind of see there's a column A and a column B. Today or in the past 24 hours, has your child had any of the following symptoms? And if there's yes to any symptom in column A or 2 or more symptoms in column B, we're asking that you keep your son or daughter home. You inform the school your child will be absent due to having 1 or more of the symptoms. Contact your medical provider or call the PA Department of Health to discuss the symptoms. And be sure to ask your medical professional for a note explaining the outcome of your visit. Email the note provided by the medical provider to your child's school nurse. A school employee will reach out to you, discuss the next steps in the return to school process. So every family will kind of receive that reminder, whatever the final kind of iteration of that looks like. We're asking you to post somewhere that is readily available for everyone to review each evening, each morning in your household. Okay. At this point, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to go back to open the conversation with the school board for discussion. I know we have some questions in the queue, but I'm going to open it up to Mr. Fedorcha and the rest of the school board at this time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Link. I do not have any questions at this time. I'm anxious to hear some more things from other people, but I will let the board, and as I did say, if you take your speaker off mute, Mr. Link will recognize you to ask the questions so that we don't have a lot of people talking at the same time. Thank you.
I believe we have a question from Mrs. Husak.
Hi, just a quick question. It's actually a couple of them. Is there anything in the plan to identify what we're going to do using our LCTI program? Are students in VOTEC going to still be able to attend those types of instances, and what are we doing with that?
Yeah, so right now our intent is to continue to have LCTI as an option for our students, assuming that the individual student's health allows for it. And also LCTI is developing their reopening plan to be able to support descending school districts. We also know that they're a unique circumstance in that they're kind of the grand central station of all the school districts, right? All 9 school districts in Lehigh County send children there. And if they would need to go to remote learning, that's part of their plan as well. Specifically, their plan is on their website. They had to get theirs done, approved a little bit earlier because of their adult education classes. Mr. Fedorcha, correct me if I'm wrong on this. I know you're a seated member there. But, the message I received today from Dr. Rushton is that they are planning on receiving students, and they're looking to support and work with the local school districts.
That's correct.
And then I have 2 others, I'm sorry. There was options of using online learning along with Bulldog Academy as well as in-person learning. Can a student at any time choose to change between one learning and another? And if so, is there requirements on, is it just by choice, or are we putting anything in place to identify how that change could occur?
Sure. So for Bulldog Academy, it's a little bit more structured than just because it's designed to be more long-term.
Sure.
We would need a commitment from the family, by the start of the marking period that their son or daughter wants to go into Bulldog Academy, and the commitment that they stay in there for at least a duration of a marking period, not just for a week or 2. That's not the design of that program. As far as if a child would need more of a short-term placement for online learning, what we're looking to do is kind of have individual conversations with those families to see what their specific needs are and how we can best accommodate that. Is it through streaming, or is it through something else? Those are the options that we're still, as far as the hybrid model goes, those conversations are continuing to occur. And also for Bulldog Academy, if a parent requests it, right now our policy is if they're requesting it, we're going to have a conversation with them, but it's kind of that all or nothing. And I don't know, Mr. Velocity, if you can speak to some reasons why, what that typical procedure looks like. Are you speaking, Mr. Velocity?
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can now.
Okay. Typically, if a family is looking to enroll their child into a cyber charter school, my counselors will make me aware of it, and either myself or Mr. Hauser would speak with that family and find out what their needs are, and to also inform them that we do have our own cyber academy, Bulldog Academy. That is, we contract with the IU to provide the same cyber experience, and I argue it's better because it keeps them connected to the community, keeps them connected to their school, and they have all the available extracurriculars and tutoring services that a brick and mortar student would have. Plus, an additional benefit is they get to keep their guidance counselor that they've had. So they're able to keep that connection with us rather than if they went to another cyber academy.
Okay.
Did that answer your question, Ms. Husak?
I think so for now. Thank you, Mr. Velocity.
Sure, absolutely.
And then, Mr. Link, my last question for right now is, what happens if a teacher or a student happens to get sick or be around somebody that's sick that we need to quarantine? What happens either to the district building? Is it classroom based? Is it the full building, the full district? Can you go into a little bit on that?
Sure. So within the larger plan, we kind of talk about the process if we have to quarantine someone within the building until they're able to go home, or if somebody has tested positive. Really what it comes down to is we're going to follow the guidance from the PA Department of Health, and we're going to work with them. We may have to make the decision that if a child in a school building gets sick, or multiple children in a school building get sick, that we have to close a school building. We have the options available to close a school building or the entire district if we need to. Some districts are talking about, well, we would just close down a classroom, or we would just do. I don't know how feasible that would be, especially if the children are coming in on the same bus. So we have flexibility built in. Those are the conversations where we would immediately start reaching out for guidance from the Pennsylvania Department of Health to help with not only contact tracing, but also help us make decisions on whether we need to close that building or the entire school district. So right now, Mrs. Husak, there's not a one size fits all answer to that question. I suspect if we have multiple, cases present either through staff or through children, that our hand's going to be forced.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If I may, Gary and Matt, just a quick logistics question. You were talking about bus seats, okay? And you talked about two to a seat. My recollection, you have a 72 passenger bus. That means there's divide by 6, 12 rows of seats. Does that mean you would be putting 24 students on that bus, 2 in each row, or you would be putting 2 on each side, times 12 rows, or a total, how does that work out? Is it 1 on each side, or is it 2 kind of on each side of the bus? If you have 2 on each side, that would be 4 times 12, that'd be 48 students in a bus. Is that the number you're looking at?
Yeah, it could be potentially 2 on every seat, which is one of the reasons, again, they have to wear a mask, which is why we're looking to get more solid, more definitive information from parents and guardians over the next few days about whether they can transport their children or not.
And that makes a lot of sense. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Green. I believe somebody's trying to ask a question. Is that Mr. Disler?
It's Mrs. Heckman. I unmuted myself. I was waiting to be called on. Can you, just in general, tell us how incoming kindergarten parents can get this survey or reply to it?
Sure, and I'm gonna kind of let Mr. Schneiderite in a short minute speak to how we have contact information for certain incoming rising kindergarten children. But in general, we have, I'm going to say, for the majority of those families, some way to reach out to them directly because we've already been in contact with the majority of them. That being said, I'm going to ask Mr. Schneiderite to speak to a little bit about the process, about how we've been communicating with the incoming or the rising kindergarten children, families.
Thank you, Mr. Link. Good evening, everyone. Briefly, we've been holding kindergarten registration virtually and have now transitioned into the sort of face-to-face version of that. We have the phone numbers of every parent who has either begun that registration process or has stated at the beginning that they would like to begin it, even if they haven't turned in a document. So I've been sending out messages through our community outreach system to those families throughout the process. I also do have emails for a number of them because partially through that process, we did send out a letter inviting parents to take part in a virtual assessment. And the parents who responded to that, I also have emails. So whatever message goes out should be automatically included because they're a part of our community outreach system via phone. And then I would also reach out via email to the emails we have. And I believe once our rollover happens at the end of July, those incoming kindergarten parents will also be added to our community outreach system permanently. Although I can't confirm nor deny that, but that's my thought. Maybe Mr. Hill can confirm that if it's possible.
So thank you, Mr. Schneiderite. I believe that's possible. Once that rollover happens, those kindergarten children are captured in our student information system. And it looks like Mr. Hill is now ready to respond.
Yes, I was reading other questions. Sorry about that. But yes, yes, James. The students, when we roll over the Power School system, the kindergarten students and the contact information will be uploaded into Power School around that time. It won't be that exact day, but it will be around that time. And once they are into Power School, they will automatically be imported into our community outreach system. So yes, that is correct.
Great.
And then one last kind of thought on that to the root of your question. Mrs. Heckman, is like the last time, we will have that survey available up on our district website.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. That being said, do any other, Mr. Fedorcha, I see that you're unmuted.
I'm just unmuted to say, ask any other board members have any questions or comments? If none, what I will do then.
I do have one question.
I do see one coming up. Mrs. Jose, go ahead, please.
Sorry. Just a question around our truancy policy and what attendance will be taken, how it will be taken. What does that look like, including, so the truancy is part one. The secondary is on a teacher side. Are there any anticipations of shortages of teachers? I know in the past, just in general, substitute teachers were hard to come by. And just curious what that will look like if we do have a shortage and we're trying to keep students apart. What happens to the classrooms?
Sure. So I'll begin with the latter of the questions there, the employee question, in particular, the teacher question. We could eventually reach a tipping point where if a critical number of teachers are unable to report to work because they're forced to quarantine, because they've been exposed, or they're showing symptoms, or, I hope this does not happen, but they actually contract COVID-19. We could reach a tipping point where that would be one of the factors where we would say we need to go to remote learning. And there are, a number of processes we would have to go through there to kind of work through with each teacher. There's a number of federal laws that we have to follow with that, and then some of our local policies. But at the end of the day, Mrs. Husak, it could become possible that we would have to go to full remote learning simply because of the number of available teachers, or teachers that are forced to quarantine. As for the children, the students, and their attendance, there's still, even to this day, guidance coming down on, what are we allowed to suspend within our policies as it relates to, mandated doctor notes and student attendance improvement plans, things that are all required. And we've actually recently updated our policies on, but we're going to need to continue to do that. Our secondary assistant principal, Mr. Hauser, has taken a lead on researching that for us. And I believe Dave is with us. Scanning here quickly.
I'm here, Mr.
There you are, sir. Thank you. Mr. Hauser, can you speak to a little bit of the work that you've already begun with that, and the flexibility that we may be allowed to do either through law or possibly policy?
Sure. There are two references, or two main references to attendance and how we enforce it for public schools. One is district policy, and the other is the Pennsylvania School Code, certain sections of that. Both district policy and the PA School Code allow for excused absences in cases of quarantine. That is, written right in there. So if unfortunately that were to happen, that is all approved. We just need, documentation that has occurred. Something we are looking at doing into this year is revising how we code attendance. We do have a good amount of flexibility in how student absences are coded depending on the circumstances. So one of the things that we have advocated for is to not only be able to mark students as present when they're physically in the building, but also mark them as present if they are participating virtually. So an example would be if a student does have to go under quarantine for 2 or 3 weeks, but that student is participating via distance learning, we could mark that student as present, and those days would not necessarily accumulate. If a student is being treated medically for symptoms, or I hope not, but actually, COVID-19, then simply medical documentation and doctor's notes, just as per normal, would suffice in kind of, excusing those days. With this, communication is going to be key. My intention at the secondary level, and I'm talking to other principals, I know this is their intention as well, is to keep things as quote unquote normal as possible with the documentation that we do as far as attendance. And the more communication, the better, so that we know what is going on and we can get things coded appropriately, and definitely show flexibility. We're examining things like mandated attendance. Part of the truancy process includes looking at the root causes for those absences. And, if it is due to these circumstances, there's a good amount of flexibility we can build in. But again, I can't stress enough, when it comes to attendance this year, communication from school to home and from home to school is going to be vitally important.
Thank you, Mr. Hauser. Mrs. Husak, other questions, follow-up thoughts?
Nope. Thank you very much.
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Link,
Yes, Mrs. Martineau.
I
Mrs.
do have a
Martineau has a
follow-up
question.
question. Thank you, Mr. Fedorcha. Mrs. Lusak's question brought up substitute teachers, and it occurred to me to point out, to ask you to point out maybe what our procedures are for dealing with a substitute teacher coming into our district. Possibly symptom checking, fever checking. I know that adds a whole other layer to finding substitute teachers, but it is a concern in the community. So is that addressed in the plan?
So they would follow the same guidelines as our employees with the symptom checking prior to arrival at work.
Thank you, Mr. Link.
You're welcome. And on a good day, right, back in, I don't know, 2019, it was difficult to find substitutes. That's not just in Northern Lehigh, that's, across the region, across the state. The pandemic has it's a whole new layer of to overcome trying to generate a robust substitute pool. Again, that could lead us to the direction where we just don't have enough substitutes, which brings me back to my comments earlier that we could potentially have to go to remote learning because of teachers having to quarantine or something like that. So thank you, Mrs. Martineau, for that question. Okay, Mr. Fedorcha, any other questions?
I do not see anyone having a question at this time, Mr. Link. What I will do then, I will keep you on deck, if I might say that. And Mr. Hill, do we have any questions that are coming from the public?
We do. We have quite a few questions. So I will start those now.
Okay, can you, if there's similar questions, can you kind of, I know it may be difficult on your part, kind of ask them at one time, but to save time, but anyway, you will ask them to Mr. Link, and you may start.
Sure. Okay. The first one is from Richard Pender. This came in through our NLSD for you at nlsd.org email address. Can you please clarify the mask wearing during classroom instruction?
Sure. Mr. Pender, thank you for the question. So school districts are required to follow the order set forth by the PA Department of Health that if you're in the public, you have to wear a mask, especially if you're under less than 6 foot. We are going to have classroom spaces that are going to be less than 6 foot. The expectation is that the students and staff wear a mask. We're looking at ways to most efficiently and appropriately break in mask breaks throughout the day. But we are bound to follow the expectations in the Department of Health order. If you read through that order, it's linked in the plan. You can easily find it online if you go to the PA Department of Health website and just kind of Google mask order. There are some exemptions. We need to abide by those exemptions, and it places limitations within the school district. And that's something that we are fully aware of, and we are constantly requesting additional guidance from the Department of Education, Department of Health, and from our legal counsel. Okay, Mr. Hill, next questions, please.
Okay, the next question these are from the YouTube viewers. The first one is Denise Pioli, and she asks, is there a plan in place to address the lack of communication to this point so that working parents are able to plan in ever-changing circumstances?
Thank you, Mrs. Pioli, for the question. We are trying to communicate as the information becomes clear to us. Unfortunately, that it does not happen in a rapid way. I encourage you, if you have specific questions about, for instance, Bulldog Academy or something like that, to reach out to either the building principal or your son or daughter's school counselor. We're in a constant balance of trying to get out information, but also fully vetting the information before we release it and find out that it's either inaccurate or has already changed. It's not an excuse. It's just the pattern of how the information comes to us. Mr. Hill.
Okay, the next question is from Kim Bentz. When school initially closed, is there a reason we didn't move to Bulldog Academy? Is participation capped in this program?
When the order came down from the governor that schools were closing on March 13th, we did not know until March 13th that he was releasing that, and we were in a learning curve, and we didn't yet know at that point how Bulldog Academy would play into our continuity of education plan. And the initial message from the governor's office was that it was a 2-week shutdown, and then a shutdown for like another 2 weeks. And then finally, he said it would be until the end of the school year. Bulldog Academy is not designed to be more of to be a short-term fix just for a few weeks. So that's the reason why there was not a large push for Bulldog Academy during the initial shutdown. At that point, we were just trying to, figure out how to get a continuity of education plan together, how to continue to provide meals to our students, how to continue to train our teachers up in, adjusting to an online teaching and learning environment.
Okay, the next question is from Ashley King. And we had a couple similar questions down below as well, so maybe we can address these at the same time. These are basically about lunches. This one specifically asks, how will lunches in the classroom work at the elementary level for the allergy students? And then someone asked down below, basically, how will lunches work in general?
Sure. So I'm going to kind of give a broad answer, but then I'm going to there was a specific question for elementary, but so I'm going to let either Mr. Pine or Mr. Schneiderite kind of weigh in on that as well, and then we'll do the same thing at the secondary level. And also Mrs. Bonick, our food services director. So very generally, lunches are going to be prepared in the kitchens, and if it's a building where the children are designated to eat in a classroom, the kitchen and cafeteria employees are going to transport the food up to the classrooms, and then we will, have it delivered to each child. And then at the secondary level, we're going to have the students come down. And we're putting systems in place for social distancing and on all those areas, and the installation of plexiglass and structurally, the buildings are going to look different than they ever have. It's just something that we're going to have to do. We don't feel good about it. We want students to be able to, enjoy lunch like they should. But if they're in one of the large group areas, there's going to be plexiglass installed, and there may only be 3 or 4 students at a table with plexiglass in between them. We're going to limit the amount of lunch options. It's basically going to have to be a hot or cold. And we're removing the a la carte options. This is to cut down on the amount of interactions and exchanges between students and staff. And Mrs. Bonick, if you're online, I don't know if you kind of want to describe, what the guidance that we're getting from the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the Department of Education as far as feeding programs for students. So now would be a good time for you to kind of describe the meal prep part of it, Mrs. Bonick.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
At this point, I think what we're looking at is exactly what you said, Matt, was a very limited menu. They're asking us to really concentrate on the most limited and less contact of anybody. So therefore, when they go through the line, they'll be offered the cold or the hot, and they'll be giving exactly what they've asked for. And then when they get down towards the register area, they'll be asked if they're getting white milk or chocolate milk, and that'll be given to them as well. So there won't be any type of contact of kids touching anything. So basically what the menu will consist of is, it might be a hot entree or a cold entree, but the fruit, the vegetable, and everything else will be exactly the same except for the entree, which is a hot or a cold. So I think that's what we're looking at, and that's what they're thinking. We're also looking at going cashless, which is something new, and we'll get information out there as soon as we have it, because we're getting it daily just like everybody else is.
And honestly, for a moment, I would just like to take a pause and thank Mrs. Bonnick and her food services department for what they did during the shutdown and through the summer with the continuing the meals through the summer. So thank you for that, Sue. And then also, like Mrs. Bonnick said, as recently as about 1-2 o'clock today, we received more guidance from the Department of Ed and the U.S. Department of Agriculture on everything from going cashless to kind of best ways to streamline exchanges with the cafeteria.
Yeah, everything, it seems, and I know everything is like that for everybody, but it's every day is changing. So we're adapting to that as quickly as we get the information. So, and we'll continue to do that.
Thank you, Mrs. Bonnick. For knowing that it's going to look fairly similar at both of our elementary buildings, Peters and Slatington, Mr. Pine or Mr. Schneiderite, could one of you kind of lay out the current plan for lunches in classrooms?
Sure. Yeah, I'll jump in on this one. So, and thanks for the question, Ms. King. The allergy issue actually, is definitely an issue. Am I not audible? Wait, I saw someone leaning in.
That's a little bit better. That was me. I'm hard of hearing into this.
Right. So the allergy issue obviously was something we considered. After looking at it, though, it's actually in some ways easier than it's ever been, because the allergy issue is usually resolved by proximity of students, and then making sure that students who have allergies are buffered by students who are buying, because all of the stuff that comes out of the cafeteria doesn't have allergens. So in the classroom, with the space that we're going to have between students and just the way it's going to be set up, it should be actually easier to protect those students. But as always, with any student who has a medical issue, we'll work with the family and work with them in order to come up with a solution. But yeah, the way that it's going to work in the elementaries is right now we're looking at delivery to the classroom. So the students will place their orders. I'm working with Ms. Bonnick on labels for bags so that things will come to the classroom. They should be fairly easy to distribute.
Mr. Pine, if a family requests that their son or daughter have, due to an allergy, have an alternate setting just for that lunch, are we prepared to accommodate that?
Definitely, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Schneiderite, is there anything that you would like to add to Mr. Pine's feedback?
Mr. Pine did a great job explaining. The only thing I'd say is, just communicate with the school nurse if there is a specific concern, and we will certainly deal with those on a one-to-one basis. Thank you.
Okay. I believe.
And Matt, if I could add, when anything is communicated to the nurse, it is communicated to the food service department immediately. So we're aware of any type of allergies or anything like that, and that sort. And we will certainly accommodate to anything and everything we can.
Thank you, Mrs. Bonnick. We appreciate that. Before we go to the secondary levels, Mrs. Chamberlain and Mr. Velocity, you're kind of on deck. It looks like Mrs. Martineau has a question.
Do you want me to go first?
Sure. Well, is it related to?
Yes. I just wanted to tack on somebody to address. Will the students be allowed to bring meals and drinks from home, pack lunches and snacks and such?
It is our intent right now to allow that unless we receive guidance from the state otherwise.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mrs. Chamberlain, can you, describe what you're planning for your building?
Yes. Sorry. Okay. So with my building, they will be going in to the cafeteria and utilizing several different areas, ensuring that there is a space between each of the students, that there's through the guidelines from the Department of Health. They will have their choices. They will go get to their seats. They will be able to eat. And we'll go from there. And anybody who has an allergy, and as it's been done in the past, if there's an allergy issue, we always know about it. We've always had peanut tables or whatever it need be, and we'll make sure that we keep those kiddos safe at any and all costs. But as you know, like Mrs. Bonnick had said, it is going to be the two choices, and that is it.
Thank you, Mrs. Chamberlain. And Mr. Velocity or Mr. Hauser, if you could describe the current plan for the high school setting.
Yes, sir. Currently, what we have done is we took a look at the blueprint of the cafeteria and the surrounding areas that we could possibly utilize. So what we had done right away, instead of having 8 seats at a table, we cut that down to 4. We're going to be installing plexiglass on those tables to provide an extra barrier of safety. We'll be spreading tables out. Helping us with moving some of her equipment from the a la carte line. We were able to put 4 tables in there and utilize some other space that we use for lines. So we are able to put in 8 additional tables. Also utilizing the faculty lounge to accommodate more spacing for our students. So we will be installing, I want to thank Mr. Durr also for his cooperation and help in designing the plexiglass crosses there to put on those tables. So we'll be able to accommodate more than enough students per lunch. So I want to thank you very much to both Ms. Bonnick and Mr. Durr, and also Mr. Hauser for helping me map that out.
Thank you, Mr. Velocity, for helping with that. The next question, Mr. Hill, please.
Okay, the next question is a technology question, so I will read the question and I will answer it.
Thank you.
It's from Denise Pioli. Will students transitioning to the middle school who no longer have a Chromebook during that term due to turning it in be issued new ones even if school cannot open? Yes, I can answer that question pretty much for the entire district. Everybody will be given a Chromebook from the kindergarten to 8th grade level, and then we will issue laptops for the students from 9th grade through 12th grade. Even if they turned them in over the summer, we will get a device. If for some reason school does not start, we will have some sort of plan in place to get those devices out. So yes, we will issue technology to the students. The next question from Richard Roberts. Are nurses or school personnel checking temperatures, or are you for some reason going with good faith approach with families? And if so, why? And to piggyback off of that, the next question is from Samantha Handwork, and that said, will teachers have temperature checks when they report to work?
So I'll start with the again with the employee side of the question. Thank you for the questions. Employees will be required to self-screen at home, and then we're going to have a like a Google form for them to be able to respond to. With students, kind of for the teachers to fill their data in. For students, this is something that we've had a lot of conversation about. And there's no way that we can mandate that they all respond every morning. We can ask them to, we can mandate it, but we've come to the realization that I simply can't guarantee that every family is going to do that. So in some ways, it's going to be a good faith effort. And we're asking for all of our families to please cooperate with that. Every building will have a number of, I guess what you call contactless thermometers available, including the central administration building and all the school buildings, where we can screen people. If for some reason we need to let them in, we can screen them. We have the ability to do that. In the front office, they will have the thermometers as well as all the nurse suites. we simply don't have the capacity to screen every child as they come through the door. It's a logistics problem. We just, if we were to do that, the entry for every child into the school building at each morning, we could potentially lose up to 45 minutes to an hour each day. Mr. Hill, next question.
Okay, the next question is from Richard Roberts. What are Northern Lehigh teachers doing, if not teaching, if the school turns red?
Mr. Roberts, if I'm understanding the question correctly, if we need to go into a red phase, either we self-select at a local level, or we're mandated to go in from the state level, it will be, teachers will be shifting to an online platform again, where the instruction will be online. We received feedback from how that went in the spring, and we are piloting new systems right now to make that the structure easier for families and children to kind of manipulate, consistency across buildings, or within buildings, I should say, and they will be working.
Okay, the next question from Tamara Faringer. Have the teachers attended professional development related to facilitating online education in the event that we need to transition to online schooling?
So the online professional development for online learning has been made available, and I'm going to let Dr. Stoker, our assistant superintendent who oversees professional development and curriculum instruction, talk to kind of what the plan is for professional development now and moving forward.
As far as professional development for teachers, we did host some sessions actually put on by some of our own teachers that are either part of our Google team or are highly capable in the online environment. Mrs. Dunham was one of those teachers that was able to do some online trainings. She did some things in screencasting. We had some people doing Google Classroom trainings, how to use the G Suite. So we do have several teachers participate in that, either on the in-service days or they chose to participate in their off hours as well. Moving into the summertime, we are looking to host additional trainings. We had a discussion as an administrative team about what some of those requirements might be or what needs are out there. So we're looking to offer some of that professional development to teachers over the summer who want to get a jump start on coming back into the fall. And then as we progress through our 10 in-service days that we have during the school year that are built into our calendar, we'll be on each of those days having, hosting some additional online trainings that meet the needs for the teachers to virtually teach to the students, or in a hybrid situation, or stream their classrooms, or whatever that need is going to be. So we do have those options. I would just add too, we've gotten a lot of feedback from parents that they struggled with regard to some of the technology in helping their child participate in the online environment. So we are looking to have mini lessons that we're going to post on our website that may be 5 minutes, how to do something particular on a website, or how to find something. So we're going to have additional kind of snippets for parents so that they can participate as well. So we're using a lot of the feedback that we got from what we learned in the spring to kind of frame and structure that professional development for the fall moving forward.
Thank you, Dr. Stoker.
Okay, the next question is from Deb Bilowski. Under what to bring, I do not see backpacks, lunch bags listed. Is that because these are obvious things students would bring along, or are you suggesting that students do not bring them along with them?
Ms. Pulowski, thank you for the question. We are not suggesting that, and that's a good point. We kind of, I guess, envision that as that's something that children would traditionally bring with them, and we're not asking them to stop bringing. So for backpacks and lunch boxes, you're right, we did not get that granular in kind of what we listed in the plan or in the summaries.
Okay, the next question from Samantha Handwork. When distance hybrid learning is considered, will students Zoom into the physical class, or would they just have a list of what to do like at the end of last school year?
So that was a good part of the feedback we received, Mrs. Handwork. So thank you for bringing that up. Right now we are, from now until really the beginning of the next upcoming school year, we are setting expectations for that. We know that we want more kind of FaceTime, even if it can't be within the building on the screens. So that's going to be one of the expectations. We're exploring options of even if we don't have to go fully online, but some children have to learn online because of their individual circumstances. We're piloting a system right now. You may have heard something called Swivel. Some districts are going to that. We believe that Swivel is cost prohibitive and that our IT team can build the same function at a much lower cost by building packages of those separate components where we could live stream the front of a classroom for students at home to watch. So we know that one of the expectations is that children and families, students and families, want more live interaction with their instructors. That's not to say that there's not going to be any what we call that we're going to totally remove what we call asynchronous work. In other words, some work that they have to do independently. By no means am I indicating that would go away. What I'm indicating is that we would move to make much more robust the online FaceTime, I guess you would call it.
Okay, the next, we had a question again about temperatures, about taking student temperatures, which I believe we already covered. And then we had a comment about temperatures again. I believe that was already covered. So we will move down the list here to Kristen Garrison. Will our children need to be in a mask during the day in the classroom?
Yes. If at any point children need to be less than 6 feet apart, we have to follow the state guidelines, the state order. That's not a guideline; it's an order. I'm not happy about it, but it's an order, and that includes school districts. When we asked the Secretary Rivera, Pedro Rivera, the Secretary of Education for the state, and we asked him many times, does this pertain directly to schools as well? And his answer each time has been yes. So yes.
Okay, the next question. Yep, the next question from Angela Williams. If a teacher or student in the classroom tests positive for COVID, will the entire class be quarantined for 14 days?
We will share out the direction that we receive from the Department of Health. That is a potential outcome of that scenario. If you look at the guidelines right now, that's what they're recommending, and I don't suspect that the Department of Health would change that. What we're trying to work through right now is I'm hearing even recently that the Department of Health is going to look to make those contacts. I would like to have some skin in that game as well. We are the educators of your children, and we need to be in that communication loop as well. I'm not just going to expect for the Department of Health to say, we got it from here. However, that being said, I do fully expect the Department of Health to communicate with us and give us quick guidance.
Okay. The next one was from Kristen Garrison again, and she asked a couple times, first of all, about what is going to happen with VOTEC students, and also will we provide transportation to and from the LCTI?
Again, thank you, Mrs. Garrison. Right now, the messages that we're receiving from LCTI is that they're prepared to receive our students. We are also prepared to continue to offer transportation to LCTI to and from, like we've traditionally done. We are in discussions with their executive director, Dr. Rushton, about expanding the capacity for more students if their parents and guardians allow them to drive. I don't know how often you've been to the LCTI campus, but their actual campus has very limited parking. I believe that, and Mr. Fedorcha, you may have a little additional insight into this. I don't know where they are in the conversation past maybe a few weeks ago. I believe that Dr. Rushton and Dr. Bieber, the president of Lehigh Community College, Lehigh Carbon Community College, the community college is looking at allowing LCTI to use their lower parking lot. I believe that the community college is, I may be wrong on this, so I just kind of want to put it out there, but I think that they're up to about 70 to 80% of their instruction occurring online for the fall semester, which would free up parking spaces on their lots. So Mr. Fedorcha, I don't know if you have any additional information on that scenario.
Yeah, I have not heard anything like that, Mr. Link. At this point, I will ask Dr. Rushton tomorrow if there is anything, and certainly I will get that to you, and you can probably do it yourself also, so that we can get it out to parents. That has not been a discussion, at least at the board level.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Can I just
your root question, Mrs. Garrison, the school district is prepared to offer transportation to and from LCTI.
Can I just add something to that, Mr. Link?
Yes, please. Mr. Green, I apologize. I forgot that you sat on the community colleges board. My apologies.
Not a problem. Yes, the vast majority of our classes in fall will be online. There will be very few students attending, so there should in all probability be parking spaces available kind of across the street, if you will, on the community college side of the street. So that might help eliminate some of those problems. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green, for your additional insight.
Okay, the next question from Richard Roberts. What happens if a student refuses to wear a mask for spite, not for medical reason?
And Mr. Roberts, therein lies all the work that we've been doing to get legal guidance. I would like to believe that wouldn't happen, but I need to be prepared. We need to be prepared if it does happen. The guidance that we're receiving right now is if a student says that they have an exemption, or they say, I'm not wearing a mask because of X, we're allowed to ask them to give us a little bit more deeper of an answer and say, well, why is that? Help me get to why that falls into one of the exemptions. If it falls into one of the exemptions, or it doesn't, then the conversation becomes, okay, then we need to look at not excluding you from the teaching and learning environment because we're simply not allowed to, but to get you the same instruction potentially in an alternate location within the building. That's what we're working through right now. That's what we're pressing the Department of Education and the Department of Health to give us in some ways to free our hands a little bit, to be able to say this is, we need you to do this, and this is what is going to happen if you don't. So those communications are ongoing at the state level through our intermediate unit, which advocates for school districts at the state level. It sure would be easy if the Department of Health gave some schools some additional leeway there. But to this point, to this date, we have not yet received that.
Okay, the next question from Denise Pioli. I believe we answered the first one, but I'm going to say that it's a two-part question. Will teachers be expected to follow the same health and safety standards, including temperature checks upon arrival? And the second part of that is, what will cleaning and sanitizing process be throughout the day?
So to answer the part about the employees screenings, yes, the expectation is that they complete that at home, and we're actually going to build we actually have already built a Google form for the employees to complete before they come to school. Again, we're fully asking the employees' cooperation there, and I suspect that our instructional staff, our support staff, our administration will hold themselves accountable and communicate frequently with their building principals and us here in central office. As far as sanitation goes, we are adjusting the schedules of our custodians so we can have more custodians in during the school day, but also have those on during the evening to do a much more thorough cleaning during each evening, but also have extra sets of hands on during the school day to be able to help sanitize and clean everything. We are all the high touch areas. We are also looking at bringing in, I guess, what you would almost call like building subs to help us in that work as far as the custodian level goes, where if we can get people to come in and they wouldn't necessarily be permanent employees, but they would be here as long as we need them to until, someday we get to the point that we can start to peel back some of these restrictions. That may not be until there's a vaccination. And even when there is a vaccination, it may not be until it's proven half a year out, a year out. I honestly don't know. I'll take the lead of science on that. But we have plans in place to do more thorough cleanings throughout the school day and during the evenings.
Okay, next question is from Samantha Handwork. She has two questions close together here, so I'm going to give you both questions. The first is, what is the max amount of students that will be allowed in the classroom? Because the governor saying students must be 6 feet apart. And the second one is, will band and choir be cut because of social distancing rules?
Right now, we do not have plans to cut band or choir. Right now, the guidance from the governor's office is 6 feet to the greatest extent feasible. As I had mentioned earlier, we are not going to be able to get to 6 foot in every classroom. We just don't have the physical capacity to do it. We are looking at using alternate settings to teach. Some classrooms will be able to do it. Some classrooms we will not be able to do it. So our goal is to get to the greatest extent feasible. So that's built into our reopening plan.
Okay, next question is from Jennifer Levan Uller. Is there a specific plan in place for special education students?
So hi, Mrs. Levan Uller. Thanks for the question. So on a very broad sense, there's always a plan in place for our students with special needs. That's by design. Due to the unique circumstances of what the pandemic has thrust upon school districts, yes, and everything from the evaluation process right through, instructing here, instructing if we need to go to a full remote. We are planning to be agile there and flexible. I'm going to ask Mrs. Dada, our Director of Special Education, to share maybe some deeper insight to some things that we know we're going to do, and some things that we're building options as we move deeper into this. So Mrs. Dada, I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening. So when it comes to the special education plan, as far as the health and safety, all of our students will be afforded the same opportunities that our students without disabilities will have. So if we wind up going, like Mr. Link said, to a full online curriculum because we are mandated to, or if due to a medically fragile student, we need to go to something that's more streaming, then that's going to be something that the IEP team can discuss and put into the IEP for any kinds of specially designed instruction, or help in deciding what might be best for each student would be up to that IEP team. So I would suggest that you would contact the case manager and we can all meet and discuss one-on-one any specific questions or concerns you might have.
Thank you, Mrs. Dada.
Okay, the next question. There's two together. I'm sorry, Michelle, you trying to speak?
Yes, Mrs. Dada, I wanted to ask you about those IEP meetings. Will they be going virtual as well?
So yes, we will be continuing to keep everything as virtual as we can to cut down on any visitors, so on and so forth. So if you contact the case manager, they would be happy to set up a virtual IEP meeting. Even when we are in school, our plan is to still try to stay as virtual as we can.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mrs. Dada.
Okay, the next two questions I am going to ask them at the same time because they have to do with the same subject matter. First was Denise Pioli. Will you be allowing for flexibility in attendance requirements in order to allow for 14-day quarantine periods? And then Tamara Farringer asked, if a parent is on quarantine and the student must stay home due to potential exposure, will the student be faced with truancy concerns, or will online earning be immediately offered during that time?
So I'm gonna ask Mr. Hauser to kind of revisit his previous answers, but I'm gonna say that we are gonna work with families if they are in a quarantine situation, either due to the student or another family member, like a sibling or a parent or guardian. As far as the flexibility question, Mr. Hauser, if you could share the information out that you shared previously.
Certainly, Mr. Lake. The answer is that in that situation, truancy wouldn't necessarily apply. We would just need the appropriate documentation that the student or a family member is under quarantine, and that could impact school attendance. We do have the capability to mark the student as present so long as he or she is participating virtually. That can be reflected in an attendance record as well. So that's the primary way we're trying to show a lot of flexibility when it comes to attendance enforcement. But quarantine is a approved reason for school absence under both Northern Lehigh policy and the Pennsylvania School Code. I'll just emphasize communication is key. Let us know what is going on, and we will work with you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hauser.
Okay, the next one is from Kyle Ritz. He just asked, he didn't know if he missed it, but what about children with asthma? He's worried about his kids wearing a mask all day.
Mr. Ritz, thank you for that question. We did generally touch on mask, maybe a little bit more than generally, but not specifically about asthma or some other pre-existing condition. It's my belief when I look at the order that was released from the governor's office that that would fall into one of the medical exemptions.
Okay, the next question is from Heidi Mack. Are there any plans to help with drop-off pickup procedures outside the school if self-transport volume is expected to increase to limit exposure on buses?
Yeah, thank you. I believe that was Miss Mack I heard. I'm sorry if I called that name wrong. Yeah, and actually even just through today, for example, Mr. Schneider and I were talking about that while I was out at Peters kind of doing a walkthrough. The answer to that question is yes. We're going to have to, look at new drop-off and pickup points, new drop-off and pickup or new student entry and exit points throughout the buildings. That's all the buildings, K through 12. So we know that we're going to have to alter things to help that flow of traffic. We may even have to, because of that, adjust some schedules within the start and end of the instructional day. What that looks like the first week of school could potentially look different the second week of school as we see how the flow of traffic continues. I don't know if any of the building principals kind of want to weigh in on that, or if you think I've covered it sufficiently. But if you want to weigh in something particular for your building, now would be a good time.
I'll just throw in, because I know it's leading snow entry. It's always been a concern and issue, and we've talked at other times about changing some traffic patterns. That we are definitely looking at that, because there's no doubt that if we're going to have an increased volume of parent drop-off, that we are going to need to look at changing that traffic pattern.
Thank you, Mr. Pine.
Okay, next question is from Tim O'Brien. Would buses be sanitized throughout the day?
So thank you, Mr. O'Brien, for that question. We are working with our bus company, Brandywine Transportation, to sanitize as often as possible. Definitely, it's not just going to be like at the end of each day. It's going to be, during the day after the runs. One of the things that what we're doing is we've got additional sprayers to spray down buses in between, and then we're actually going to turn that equipment and sanitation product over to the transportation company, and then their employees will be doing that work for us. And the buses will also have, I know this wasn't necessarily your question, but the buses and vans will all be made of, have hand sanitizer available right on them.
Okay, the next question is from Kristen Garrison. Who do we contact to enroll our student in Bulldog Academy?
To enroll your son or daughter in Bulldog Academy, it would be at the high school. It would be either Mr. Velocity, Mr. Hauser, the principal or assistant principal, or Mrs. Crucial. Mrs. Crucial is our lead guidance counselor for Bulldog Academy at the high school.
All right, and the next one is from Aaron Kern. Has there been any discussion of regarding children getting Chromebooks and supplies prior to August 31st in the event that we cannot physically attend school on the 31st?
So the answer to that is yes. As far as specifics, I will let Mr. Hill share out what our current thinking is for any child that did not keep their Chromebook, what that plan would be.
Yes, in the event, and we kind of answered this prior to this, but yeah, the short answer is yes. We have discussed that. In the event that we wouldn't return to school, we would set up something very similarly to what we did back in March, where we would just basically do like a drive-through. We would pass out laptops, Chromebooks, things of that nature. So yes, that has been discussed. We don't have specifics yet because we're hopefully not going to use that option, but if we do, we will certainly get those supplies out to everybody. And then we have from Dan Parks. There's a question about his daughter entering kindergarten. Just wanted to know who he can talk to get an idea how things are going. I believe that would just be if you want to answer that, but I think Mr. Schneiderwright would be the person to get in touch with to talk about kindergarten registration and how things are going with kindergarten.
Yeah, that's correct, Mr. Hill. First, Mr. Parks, let me say we're excited to have your daughter join us and become a Northern Lehigh Bulldog. You can reach out to Mr. Schneiderwright, the building principal. You can reach out to Kathy Reese, the administrative assistant at Peters Elementary School, or you can reach out to Dr. Stoker, our assistant superintendent, who oversees kind of district-wide enrollment and registration.
Okay, the next one is from Cynthia, I believe Zimmerman. What is the coordination plan with LCTI? What will first year attendance look like for my 10th grader?
Hi, Mrs. Zimmerman. Nice to hear from you. So as I had mentioned before, our intent is to continue with enrollment and students participating in LCTI as closely to the norm as possible. As far as transportation type things, we're prepared to offer transportation, and we're working with Dr. Rushton to see if they're ready to receive expanded capacity for students driving themselves or parents and guardians dropping their sons and daughters off and picking them up. Right now, all indicators are yes. For the specifics of what the operations within LCTI looks like, I would encourage you to reach out to LCTI for their health and safety plan. I don't want to misrepresent specifically what they're doing in their building, so it's best to let them answer directly.
Next question is from Matthew Regard. Question, will buses be provided for children that are in before and after school daycare?
Matthew, I'm not sure if I'm understanding your question fully. Do you mean like kind of what's offered over at Peters, and whatever we typically transport for, we will continue to do that. So I don't know if I'm fully answering your question. I'm going to ask that maybe tomorrow, if you want to reach out to me, either through email or phone, we can have a deeper conversation about your particular need. In general, what I'm saying is we're prepared to match what we've offered traditionally.
Okay, the next one from Heather George. Heather would like to know, I would like to know the specific mask rules in regards to Peters Elementary. Will students have to be in masks the entire day or only when in the hallways and buses?
So specifically, again, I'm going to go back to the governor's order, the Secretary of Health's order. Anytime the students are within less than 6 feet, they're going to have to wear a mask. At Peters Elementary School, there are going to be some classrooms where students could potentially have to wear a mask almost the whole day.
Okay. And then we had a couple thank yous for the people who are help feeding our students throughout the summer. So there was a few of those. Thank you to all the lunch staff and Mrs. Bonnick, of course. And the next one is Abigail Petrie. As a student who is at high risk, will I be able to take extra safety precautions that are brought from home, such as gloves, personal hand sanitizers, N95 masks instead of surgical masks, Lysol wipes, etc.?
Mrs. Petrie, because it sounds like you're, and I'm sorry I missed if it was a son or daughter, your child has a unique set of circumstances. I'm going to ask that you reach out to either your building principal or Mrs. Dada so we can help specifically plan for children that are high risk for some of the reasons you just described. Our goal is to work with every family that finds their son or daughter in that circumstance.
Okay, and the next one is basically a lunch question. In regards to the food possibly going cashless, are they going to lift the charge that they put on the account when you put money into their lunch accounts?
I'm going to let Mrs. Bonnick answer that, but my understanding is that charge actually comes from that third-party provider. I could be wrong. I'll let Mrs. Bonnick answer that.
Eric, can you repeat it quick?
Yeah, basically they want to know if there will still be a charge if they have to add money to their account.
Yeah, they can actually send in a check, they can send in a money order, or they can go through our K-12 payment plan, which you can deposit on anytime. You can check your kid's account anytime you want.
So I believe the root of the question, Mrs. Bonnick, was that is the fee going to be removed if we're forced to go fully cashless?
I would love to say yes. Unfortunately, it's by another company. It's not our district, so no.
Thank you, Mrs. Bonnick.
Okay, the next few questions are all related to pretty much like orientation. So maybe we can just do, is there going to be, we had a couple questions about orientation for Slatington, for the middle school. So maybe we can just touch on that in general rather than reading each question. They're all based on orientation.
Sure. You had mentioned Slatington first. Building principals, I'm going to ask that you be prepared to kind of share out your initial thinking on how that is going to look for the upcoming school year. Why don't we start with Mr. Pine and we'll start with Mr. Pine.
Sure. So this is actually something that's been on my mind a lot over the past week. Like a lot of things in this plan, it's really about coming up with multiple avenues that we can take. Right now, depending on what we're able to accomplish safely, I'd very much like to, if we're going to start the year live, have an opportunity for our families and for the kids to come and get into the building and see the building live. But in addition, we are also looking at making sure that we're able to create some sort of experience that will foster a transition. So again, that could look a lot. It could look many different ways depending on how things unfold over the next month. But I think like everything else, our goal is to create a safe experience that brings our families and our kids into the building.
Thank you, Mr. Pine. Mr. Schneiderite, thoughts from Peters Elementary School?
Very similar. Obviously, we'd love to get everybody in, but we need to make sure we're safe to prepare for the potential of not being able to bring people in. I'm hoping to put together a virtual tour of Peters Elementary School. This way, is particularly kindergarten families and parents or new to the district parents will be able to sort of see what's going on within the school without actually having to step in. As far as what our kindergarten orientation or our first and second grade meet the teacher night looks like, there still have to be some discussions with that. But if that happens virtually, we'd like to have the teachers be able to meet with parents virtually, as well as still provide the typical presentation that happens by me at those nights as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Schneiderite. Mrs. Chamberlain.
Just as the gentleman said, this is something that's been weighing on my mind. Mr. Hauser and I have already talked about creating a virtual tour as well for the middle school, depending on if we're going in live to alter the way we did seventh grade orientation, but to still be able to have a live orientation, as long as well as a virtual. And the same with the back to school night. It's one of those things that we're going to come up with as many different plans, as many different ways that we can make sure that everyone is comfortable with our building and how we're set up, and so that they know that coming into it. So just like the other guy said.
The other guy being Mr. Pine.
Oh, the other gentleman. I'm sorry, the other gentleman.
Thank you, Mrs. Chamberlain. And then Mr. Velasquez.
I can't really add too much to that. I think we're all going to be flexible and adaptable and try to communicate out so our incoming students are as familiar with the building as possible. So we're obviously going to plan for a live orientation, but we will be prepared with some type of virtual option also, just in case for whatever reason students wouldn't be able to come in. So we will be prepared for it either way.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Velasquez.
Mr. Hill, this is Gary. Do we have, and I'm not stopping anything, please understand but my question is, are there a lot more questions yet?
We're getting down to about 10 or so left, I believe.
Okay. The reason why I'm asking that, I am asking for my board, who has been now sitting for over 2 hours at their computers, and I know they probably need at least a 2 to 3 minute break to use the facilities. So if I can keep everybody on where we are, just kind of put everybody on, unless Mr. Link wants to sing, I'll let that go. But can we take at least a 2 to 3 minute break?
I'm not opposed to that. I have 8:49 on my clock. If we want to say we'll reconvene at a hard start at 8:50. I'm sorry, scratch that. That would only be a minute. 8:55.
Yeah, that would be fine. And I just don't want to stifle anybody, but I also know that some of the board may need at least a minute break. Thank you.
Not hearing any of the board members object, I'm gonna recommend that we take a 5-minute break, and then we will reconvene in case anybody needs to stretch their legs or anything. Thank you.
Okay, we are going live again right now.
Thank you. Okay, with your next question then, Mr. Hill?
Yes. Give me 1 second. Okay, the next question was, and I'm going to combine these two together because they're very similar questions. Christina Crossley asks, is there still going to be gym class and any extra classes, or are you sticking with the main class? And then Kristen Garrison also asked, will the students have gym and recess?
So thank you, Mrs. Crossley and Mrs. Garrison. So to answer your question, yes, our intent is to continue to offer gym and recess, but we know that there's going to be certain things that we can and cannot do. So we are not looking to just offer the core academic programs. We are also looking to offer the specials. That may mean that the children, especially at the elementary level, are not transitioning to a special room, but to cut down on transitions, the teachers of the special area subject are going into the room where the children are. But in short, yes, we are.
Okay, and then we had a few questions that were asking, will there be real-time live instruction available for elementary school age students, which I believe we covered during the initial presentation.
Yes, we're looking to implement that.
And then we had a few more about masks, which I believe we already, we had a few of those questions which we already covered. Then there's a question that asked, is the school going to provide masks? This is from Alyssa Pepe. Is the school going to provide masks to students, or will there be masks available if they forget them at home?
Hi, Mrs. Pepe. Thanks for the question. That is a good question. We are encouraging all students and staff to bring a mask from home that meets the criteria, which is linked right into the full health and safety plan. That being said, we know children forget things. We know adults forget things. Just ask my wife. She can verify that for you. We are prepared to have, we have a stockpile of masks at every building.
Okay. Then we have a question from Holly Rainey. If the students have to do remote learning, will teachers be able to go into school to get their workbooks? I think what Holly is asking there, like last time we had a full lockdown of the school and people weren't allowed to go in.
Yes, if we will put a system in place to get the materials out to the students. And I want to recognize right now and validate that was frustrating at the end of last year. But we were trying to decipher the limitations that were being placed upon us while also still trying to meet the needs of the families. But to answer your question, yes.
Okay, and the next question is Aaron Connect. I'm sorry if I missed this, but if we go hybrid, is there a plan for which students will go in on which days?
Hi, Mrs. Connect. No apologies. I don't believe we actually answered that specific question. We are looking at how, as far as the number of students, it would be best to divide those groups. So I don't have a specific answer for you yet.
And the next one is Cynthia Zimmerman. How will you address incidences of bullying which occur where students cough on other students with the intent of to harass through saying things if a student has COVID? What will be the consequences?
Thank you, Mrs. Zimmerman. That's a good question. We will implement our discipline policy. It's an unacceptable behavior. I don't know that I can technically brand it as bullying if you look at the definition of bullying within our policy, but it's unacceptable behavior and we will address it as such.
And then we had a question about Kristen Garrison. If a student would test positive is a bus student, will all students on the bus, including the driver and aide, have to be quarantined?
So again, Mrs. Garrison, similar to that question when it was asked about the classroom, we are going to work with the Department of Health to quickly come to a decision and get information back out to anybody that may have come in contact with that student or employee, if it's a bus driver or a bus aide. And so to answer your question, potentially yes, or they may all have to quarantine based on the guidance from the Department of Health.
And from Tamara Faringer, will students be attending special subjects like art, gym, library, etc., outside their classroom, or will teachers be coming to the classroom to minimize transmission contact in the hallways?
Sure. Thank you, Mrs. Faringer. We, especially at the elementary level, like I had noted before, right now we're looking at having the teachers go to the classrooms instead of having the students kind of transition through the hallways. At the middle school and high school level, we are still working through that. But there's a chance that those students may be transitioning to that elective or special subject.
Next one is from Dan Parks. Is online schooling available if parents are not comfortable sending their students back to school? And would those children be given a Chromebook?
If they participate in online schooling offered by the school district, whether it's Bulldog Academy or a model, that we're looking to solidify for individual students, the answer is yes. If students leave, disenroll from Northern Lehigh and attend like some other cyber program not sponsored by the school district, then the answer is no.
And then we had David King. He basically just adds the same question. Would it be feasible to keep students in one classroom and move the teachers throughout the school day?
Mr. King, again, thank you for that question. That we are looking to do that whenever feasible.
And from Kim Phillips, what is the plan regarding how bathrooms located in the classrooms will be cleaned? Is it going to be cleaned after each student use?
What we're looking at doing right now is, and unfortunately, Mr. Durr, our Director of Operations, could not be with us this evening, but we're looking to put a plan in place to sanitize those bathrooms frequently. I don't yet know if it's going to be after every single use. That's one of those things in the plan that we're looking to come to land on a final answer for.
And from Angela Williams, is it a violation of HIPAA laws to ask a student or parent why their child will not wear a mask?
That, Mrs. Williams, thanks for the question. That's part of the legal guidance that we're getting from our school district attorneys. Right now, and this may change, it looks like we can ask them why, and then we can make a decision as to whether it falls into one of the allowable exemptions. But we are not allowed or are able to demand that they produce something in writing from their healthcare provider. The Department of Health order does not permit that.
Okay, the next question from Heather George. Are we able to know if our children will be in a class at Peters that requires a mask all day, as that is a major deciding factor in if her son will return to public school or not?
Thank you, Mrs. George. I encourage you to, or Miss George, I encourage you to reach out to Mr. Schneiderite. Right now, one of the reasons why we can't specifically answer that is because we don't yet know how many children are going to be returning. Once we get a clearer number on how many children will physically be in the building, we hope to be able to share that out with you. But I would say for specific questions about classrooms, please contact the building principal.
Crystal Borman wants to know, will there be a form to enroll the children into Bulldog Academy?
Ms. Borman, thank you for the question. Mr. Velasity, I'm going to ask you to kind of respond what that enrollment process looks like specifically, for a high school or a middle. Please focus on high school. And then knowing that the process is similar across the buildings.
Yes, if the parent is interested in enrolling their student into Bulldog Academy, the parent would contact their guidance counselor, and then I would be notified with that information, and we would want to have the discussion to understand the individual needs of the child, of your student, to see if there might be some accommodations that we could keep them in brick and mortar. However, if it's something that is more appropriate for the student, then what we would do is that we would make an arrangement with Mrs. Tiedemann, our librarian, to do an induction to see how the student would prepare for or be prepared for the online environment, get that information, meet with the parent, go over the information, and then get the student set up with a laptop, which I believe, Mr. Hill, we would have the student keep their current laptop. I think that we've decided to do that. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and then we would be getting that student set up with their online classes. So the first step would be contact your guidance counselor of your respective buildings, and then you would go on from there. As far as the induction person for the other buildings, I cannot speak to that, but I know at the high school would be Mrs. T.
So thank you, Mr. Velasquez. So at the high school, the point of contact would be Mrs. Crucial or Mrs. Hawford. At the middle school, it would be Mrs. Brown. At the Slatington Elementary, it would be Mrs. Mangle. And at Peters Elementary, it would be Mrs. Cromer. Those are our school counselors across the district.
Next one from Ashley King. Is there a deadline to when we need to decide if we send our children for in-person or online through Bulldog Academy?
We have not identified a deadline as of yet, Ms. King, but once that survey goes out, we're going to leave it hang out there for a little bit. And then once we select a, please respond by date, we will give you enough advance notice to still give you time to respond. So to answer your question, we have not set a deadline as of yet.
Okay, next question from Tamara Faringer. Since you have said that your plan is to use a similar online platform that was used in the spring, can parents be assured the quality of education will not be compromised as it was in the spring?
Our goal will be to offer a high level of education for the students, no matter what learning environment they're in.
I believe we're at the end. We also have, we just have some general questions then that really are not related to the topic that we're discussing right now. So that's the end of the questions for now.
This is Bob Keegan, board member. I do have a question. Can you hear me?
I can, Mr. Keegan.
Okay. We need to have a communication protocol for the return of the phone calls. There's been a lot of questions tonight. And some of the answers have to come from administrators in all the buildings. So what I think needs to happen is to develop a time frame for when families can expect to hear from the building administration.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Keegan. We will work on that.
Okay.
Generally, our rule is 24 hours, but sometimes that's not always possible.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Keegan.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Link.
Yes, sir.
This is Gary. I have received an email from Lori Geronicas from the foundation, and her comment was that can we not take temperatures of everyone as they come in our building like they do in the hospital? I did respond to her as I'm listening and trying to do everything else, saying that you had addressed that the issue with taking temperatures of everyone, particularly all of our students, would take a lot of time and would really interrupt the instructional time. She is offering also that the foundation can help support this, and my suggestion would be then, just so that she knows, I know she said she was on, that she knows I'm asking this question and to you, that we speak with her maybe tomorrow or something like that. Maybe we can do something. I really, the Hope Foundation will continue to support us, whatever we do. But I also realize that what you said about the time and so forth to take everyone's temperature. So if we can do that, I would appreciate that. And I'm hoping Mrs. Geronicas will also. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Fedorcha, thank you for sharing that with me. Lori, and to all the members of the Education Foundation, first let me say thank you for everything that you have done already to support us literally since the first Monday after the schools shut down. We are very grateful for all the support, whether it's just recommendations, offering to help us purchase things that we need throughout the shutdowns and through the summer, and to help with our feeding program. I'm very happy and proud to say that our Education Foundation is so supportive of our districts, of our students here. I will reach out to you. I have a note here now hanging on the bottom of my screen to reach out to you to continue the conversation about what that may look like moving forward.
Thank you. And I too thank Lori and the foundation. I also thank everyone who came on tonight to ask your questions. Every question was wonderful and legitimate and needed. And I'm sure there's a lot more questions from our parents as time goes on. And I think that the best way to do it from here on would be to do direct contact with individual principals and Mrs. Dada or whomever else is needed. Again, parents, anyone who was on, thank you very much. And if there's nothing else, then I will move on with the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Fedorcha.
If you give me 1 second to pull my agenda up on my tablet here. Okay, what I would like to also state that I did not state earlier, that we did have a meeting of the executive session for personnel reasons prior to this meeting. Mr. Link, is there anything else before I go to on with the agenda?
No, the sharing out of the information on the reopening plan and then the Q&A session was my superintendent's report. Thank you, sir.
Very good. Thank you very much. Moving on then, I will go to the personnel items, and board, you're back on deck here. I'm looking for a motion to approve A and B. A and B. Do I have a motion to approve?
Michelle Martineau, so moved.
Do I have a second?
Donna Culp, second.
Okay, it's been moved in second. Are there any questions on the personnel items? Hearing none. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Thank you. Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Heckman?
Yes.
Ms. Husak? Yes. Mr. Keegan?
Yes.
Mr. Kern? Ms. Culp?
Yes.
Ms. Martineau?
Yes.
Mr. Disler?
Yes.
Mr. Fedorcha?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you
Mr.
very
Fedorcha, if I may just take a minute, I would like to wish Mrs. Hill good fortune and good health moving forward. And I would also like to welcome Caitlin Parsons to the Northern Lehigh family. We are excited to work with you and excited to have you join the team at Peters Elementary School in first grade. And congratulations on your new position.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on then, we're at the new business item number 5, and it is to move A and B, and that is the plan that was outlined by our superintendent. And I just also, as he had said, this is the plan that is there today, and we don't know what will be there tomorrow, but I am asking for a motion to approve the plan by the board. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Bob Keegan.
Yes.
I heard 2 people, so Mr. Keegan and who else?
I believe
Robin Disler.
Okay, Mr. Keegan and Mr. Disler moved in second. The motion, Madam Secretary, roll call.
Ms. Heckman?
Point of
Yes.
order, Mr. President. Can we have any discussion on this before we approve it?
Oh, sir. I'm sorry. Yeah, I just assumed we did. That's my
Thank you,
fault.
Mr. Green.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I just have to make a few comments, Gary, and the first is I'm a little concerned with the bus seats and putting 48 kids on a bus. I don't know if I like that or not, and I'm not sure what the alternative is. I don't know if we can get parents to help us with that or how we can move forward with that. But I'm really concerned with the mask requirements, and most of you on the board will probably know that I'm as conservative as anyone else on the board. However, I have.
What's up?
I think I went away, but that's okay. I'll keep talking. I really have a concern, and it's like, yeah, we say everybody must wear masks. However, if you really don't want to wear them, you don't have to, and you really don't need a medical excuse. I'm not sure what's happening. This hasn't happened all night until I started to talk, but so I'm going to hit the button and see what happens.
We can hear you, sir.
You can hear me. Okay, thank you. We talked the other night, and we know that we cannot force students, we cannot force faculty members, we cannot force staff members at any level to wear a mask. We know that. We don't want to admit that, but that's the bottom line reality. And I guess personally, I'm not comfortable asking students. I'm not comfortable asking teachers, custodians, cafeteria workers, administrators, anyone on every level to come into classrooms where they're 4 feet away from people not wearing masks. I have asked in the past, can we get the governor or someone on the governor's staff to give us some leeway in telling students, teachers, whoever, if you don't want to wear a mask, then you've got to do something different. And I understand that per the Pennsylvania School Code of 1937, we have to give everyone a free and equal opportunity education, but they didn't have coronavirus then. And I'm just not comfortable asking our employees and our students to come together in these small areas without being forced to wear a mask, without being forced to social distance. If someone decides not to social distance, can we say, hey, yo, you go home? I don't think so. If someone comes in with a mask, without a mask, can we tell them, excuse me, you have to leave? I don't think so. And I'm uncomfortable with that. So I'm hesitant to approve the plan. The governor wants us as a local level to move forward, but they're not giving us the tools and equipment that we need to move forward. I wish they would give us those tools, and until they do that, I'm uncomfortable approving a plan where we could put people in jeopardy. And I know everybody wants to return to normal, and so do I, but I'm just not comfortable doing that. So end of my conversation. So.
And if I may respond to that, Mr. Fedorchik, Mr. Green, thank you for sharing that. It's so frustrating. I agree with you. Here are some things that we have done, as I had mentioned earlier. We have, not only have we sought legal guidance from our attorneys on that about what lever do we have if people do not want to cooperate. I've shared directly the concerns, that specific concern after our last meeting with the executive director of our intermediate unit, who is our liaison to the Department of Education in the governor's office. We continue to advocate for more definitive ability and direction from the state level through associations like the Pennsylvania Association of School Administrators. And honestly, I know that PSEA, the State Teacher Association, are continuing to send similar messages. I don't know if the governor will do that. I don't know if the department, if the Secretary of Education will do that or the Secretary of Health will do that. But we continue to advocate for that. So I hear you loud and clear, sir.
Mr. Link, this is Gary. I echo Matt 100%. Trust me, if I had to come into a room with people not wearing masks, I would leave immediately. I've got a real phobia about being around someone who doesn't have a mask and who's in following thing. The only thing I will say, Matt, at this point, the plan that we have put in front of us right now is the plan for our total opening of school. And part of that certainly necessitates us following the guidelines. I think we always said that this is going to change probably daily or whatever else in some respect, but I think overall, it is the way we need to prepare to open school. And we're getting too close right now not to at least pass this plan with the idea that there is those concessions and changes. And I agree with all those changes with the mask. I think if someone cannot wear your mask, I don't care. I think we can ask them to have a doctor's note. I don't think it matters what we ask them. We don't have to know what the reason is, but a doctor's note, something a little bit more than them saying so. And I do also agree with, and that was something I was going to even talk to Mr. Link about, is that students who do not follow those rules, can we then tell them they need to start to go online and take their education outside of the school? So those are things I think are continuing to answer, but I would hope that we would at least pass this plan so that we can at least get the majority of this plan in place, so that it's not as confusing later on for parents either, because we're getting too close not to have something starting now. And that's just what I need to say. I understand everybody's frustration. We all have it. Thank you.
I agree with you 100%, Gary, and I'm as frustrated as you are, and I think we're all frustrated. The governor once again has said, oh, I can't make a decision, so he's thrown it down to the local level. It's like mandates where they don't agree to pay taxes. You know, it's like, well, here's a mandate, but we won't give you the money. And I think that's what they're doing here. I guess I would not, as an individual, want to go into a classroom with 20 students in front of me without masks. Would you want to do that? I wouldn't. I'm not sure it's fair to ask our faculty to do that, to go in front of a class with 20 students who aren't wearing masks. And you know as well as I do, if one student shows up and doesn't wear a mask and says, I don't want it, and we say why, we can't force them to do that. And if we can't force one student to do it, 3 days later, nobody's going to be wearing it. That's a big concern of mine. I think the governor or his people need to stand up. They need to override that rule and say, yes, you can force people to wear masks. You can force people to do social distancing. And if that's the case, then I'm more than comfortable approving an opening plan. Until then, I'm not sure I am. So that's my point.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Anyway, any other comments or questions?
Yes, this is Bob Keegan. One of the thoughts I had, because we had a lot of questions tonight from our community, there are going to be a lot more. We could develop for our website FAQs, frequently asked questions, and have a whole list of those things so that our administration and the board isn't totally bogged down with phone calls and emails, which I think are going to come. So it's just an idea to throw out there for administration to think about. I know that you're giving out information, but this is one thing I've seen in other school districts, and it seems to be working.
Thank you, Mr. Keegan, for bringing that up. That's a similar tactic that we took with I'm sorry, Mr. Fedorcha.
No, please go ahead.
Mr. Keegan, thank you for bringing that up. It's a similar tactic that we took with our continuity of education plan. And it is absolutely our intent to develop an FAQ once a health and safety plan is approved, and have that available on the website as a connect to the health and safety plan. So thank you. I also think that's a necessary step.
Are there any other questions from the board?
Yes, this is Michelle Martineau. Mr. Link, so the mandate to wear masks from the governor and the state health department, so the mandate does not yet have teeth? Is that what I'm understanding here?
No, the order is the order. If you're in public, including schools, you have to wear a mask. The only time you're not allowed to wear a mask is if you fall into one of those exceptions. What we're not allowed to demand is some sort of written proof from a healthcare provider that you fall into one of those exceptions. However, if and I had mentioned this earlier this evening, if they can't say that they fall into one of those exceptions and they say, well, I'm just not doing it, then it's a discipline issue, right? It's insubordination. If they can't get us to, okay, I fall into one of those exceptions. Listen, I'm not saying that it's a fine, bright line. It's not. I do agree that the state level needs to put some teeth into it to help us. I don't think they're going to do it. I want to be able to continue to plan, kind of moving forward. And I validate that it's frustrating. I honestly do. And we will continue to send those messages back up to the state level.
Thank you, Matt, for agreeing with me. I think you're right. We can require them, but if they don't, there isn't a darn thing we can do. They can come up with all kinds of exceptions, and we can't force them to do it. I'm sorry to be disruptive, but that's the bottom line. We cannot, you know it, I know it, we cannot force students or teachers or anyone else on our staff to wear a mask to school if they decide not to. We can't force them to do that. And if the governor gives us that authority, hallelujah. But so far, they have not done that. We do not have the right to tell a student if he doesn't wear a mask, he must go home, or she. We don't have the right to tell a teacher if they don't wear a mask, they must go home. That's the bottom line at this point. We can't force them to do that.
Right. I would add just one more thought on my end. I also believe that influence works in a positive way as well. And I'm asking our families right now to work with us. Have your children, have your sons and daughters wear masks. And that also will influence other children. It's not to fix. I'm not saying it's to fix, but it's a help. And I think the more we cooperate and buy into that as a school district and community, the fewer those individual cases will become. It's not going to eliminate them. I recognize that. But we are asking, our families and our community to help us. We need your help. And so that's my ask right now. I understand that some people may be opposed to that, but as your superintendent, I'm asking.
Anyone else have any questions or comments?
Hi, Mr. Link. It's Gail Husak. Just curious, I know we had touched a little bit on different things of it. I know we're all kind of in the same situation where we don't want the kids to wear masks. We want them to stay safe. We want our teachers to stay safe. Have we thought, like I said, I know we talked about it before, putting some type of rolling plan in place instead of just one way or another. So to see how things go. I know we said,
Mrs. Husak, you broke up on there. I heard you say, are we able to put something
too.
in place? I didn't hear what the something was.
Sorry. So like some kind of, almost like we have the red, green, and yellow like we're doing now, but to actually shift when our starting dates are, like we had talked about earlier, where maybe the first week or two, let's see how it goes. Are we doing any half and half or just remote, see how other districts are doing and then come in? Or are we just, I don't know what's better. I guess I'm sure you guys all talked about it in your larger group, but just curious what the thought was. And also what our surveys came back of our students that we went out and took surveys. Are we looking for most of our students to come back, or were we looking for most of them to go online? Kind of what were the reasoning behind why we chose to go all in?
Sure. So the parent survey results were for all in, meaning I want my children, my sons and daughters in 5 days a week, was well over 60%. The hybrid model of some in some of the time, some in the rest of the time. I don't have the results here in front of me, but I want to say even that was like around 20%. And then the rest were fully remote, or I just don't know yet. So overall, the absolute majority was back in school.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other board member? Okay. It's been moved and seconded, and I ask again, any questions before I call for the vote? Hearing none. Madam Secretary, roll call.
Ms. Heckman?
Yes.
Ms. Husak?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Keegan?
Yes.
Mr. Kern? Ms. Culp?
Yes.
Ms. Martineau?
Yes.
Mr. Disler?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Fedorcha?
Yes.
Motion passes, Mr. Fedorcha.
Thank you very much. And thank you, board. And good luck, Matt. Good luck. Okay, thank you. Moving on, we have one more item yet, and that is a legal motion. If I can have a motion to approve the settlement agreement that you had in your packet. Do I have a
This
motion?
is Robin.
Pardon?
Robin Disler, yes.
Okay, Mr. Disler is moving. Do I have a second?
Matt Green, seconds.
Has it been moved in second? Any questions? All those in favor? Roll call, please.
Ms. Husak? Yes. Mr. Keegan? Mr. Keegan?
Yes.
Sorry. Ms. Culp?
Yes.
Ms. Martineau?
Yes.
Mr. Disler?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Fedorcha?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you very much. We're at recognition of guests, but I'm assuming that we have already gone through all of that. So I will now look to a adjournment, a motion to adjourn, please.
I'd like to say something. This is Bob Keegan. I want to thank all the administrators and board members and everybody involved in all the work they've been doing since March. Our staff, the teachers, it's been a daunting process, something that no one expected, but I just want to thank everybody for a job that they did and all the hard work they put in.
Thank you, Mr. Keegan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kagan. And I'm sure the rest of the board all agrees with you, and thank you for those comments. Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Bob Keegan.
Do I have a second?
Michelle Martineau, second.
I was getting nervous that we didn't want to adjourn here. Roll call, please, Mrs. Husak.
Mr. Keegan?
Yes.
Ms. Culp?
Yes.
Ms. Martineau?
Yes.
Mr. Disler?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Heckman?
Yes.
Ms. Husak? Yes. Mr. Fedorcha?
Yes. And
Motion
thank
passes.
you. A long and good meeting. And again, thanks everyone. Good night. Stay safe. Stay well.
Thank
Good
you,
night.
everyone, for your time and
Thank
joining
you.
us tonight. I really appreciate everyone's questions and input.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome, Mr. Disler.